Right, so today I want to make a video about this story I just seen that was published on the 13th, but I just seen it yesterday. And it's refugee shelter cost taxpayers, or to cost taxpayers, nearly $1 million a month. And these stories are, there's a lot of these kind of stories. I know this is just one. And the one thing that I mentioned when I made the Don Cherry video, which I kind of got wrong, but one of the thing that a lot of people criticized me on, they were wrong about as well. But this idea that, I mean, refugees by definition are a net drain on society because they're not coming to Canada to work. Immigrants still are a net drain to Canada or the U.S., whatever country you want to call it, on society because if you look up, I mean, even look up the Center for Immigration Studies, they, in the U.S., I believe they're from, and according to their numbers, immigrants from the third world are about just under twice as likely to be on welfare or a welfare program as a general citizen. So all the people in the comments that were talking about, oh, I was just making those stats up. First of all, I'd made videos about that kind of stuff before, so you easily could have just went and looked at the videos, and I'm going to continue making videos on it because there's still a massive percent of the population that still doesn't understand this stuff, and I mean, they're just falling for the brainwashing of the mainstream media, of the public schools, all that stuff. But um, the reason to be against this stuff isn't that, again, the people on the left seem to, they always assume your motives, and they're always wrong. They always assume that it's racism, it's people that aren't generous, and that's completely untrue. Number one, the left, people on the left have tended to be the racists throughout history. They still are nowadays. In my experiences, and I mean, it's a very large experience, so it's not like a one time thing. And in listening to people on the left and the right talk, because I do listen to a lot of people on the left, both personally and online, I notice that the less people know, the more they tend to project their own views onto society. So which is why I think you see people on the left that continue to accuse the right of racism because they're generally the racists, or more likely. I don't think a large percent of society is racist, anyways. But that's kind of my view on that. And getting back to this issue, um, it's not that we can't accept refugees for some nefarious reason. It's that we have our own problems. I mean, unemployment in Canada is getting really bad. I mean, you look at the US, I mean, Canada as well, homelessness is a massive issue. Like, we can't afford to pay our own bills as it is now. We're in massive debts, all this kind of stuff. So, shelling out another $1 million a month, and again, it's a lot more than this. And in the US, and again, you can look up these numbers. It's costing the country about $100 billion a year. In, I mean, obviously, immigrants are putting some into this into immigrants and refugees are putting into this society, but obviously they're taking a hell of a lot more out because in Canada, just numbers wise, I would guess that Canada's number is probably about 10 to 20 billion. Just assuming that the U.S. is about 10 times the population, so it's pretty safe. I mean, Canada takes in more immigrants and refugees as a percent of the population than the U.S. does. So it could be more, but basically the point being of this video is that so many people still don't understand this topic, that we don't have enough to get by as it is. People think that because we have heating and air conditioning and we can go to the grocery store and have food and we have the basics of life covered, but just barely. Like just barely. Like the amount of people that are, I mean, a lot of people don't have that either too. Like the amount of people that are a missed paycheck or two away from being thrown out of their house or their apartment or losing their car is astounding. Like astounding. Like tons of people are like that. And rather than helping people who have put nothing into the society, why don't we help these people that are currently here? And I mean, typical leftists too, that they love giving away other people's money when it's their own money. All of a sudden, then they're very frugal with their spending. I know I seen another post the other day too. Actually, it was yesterday. That the three provinces in Canada that are net, basically they lose money on the equalization, are the three most conservative provinces. at least right now, namely Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario. All the provinces that have NDP or Liberal provincial governments are all net negatives. Basically, they take more than they give. So, as much as people think that this kind of stuff is a stereotype, like the overwhelming majority of time, it's true. And basically, the take-home point I want to give here is that number one, people that disagree with me on this subject, they're not going to change their minds. Like literally, they're not going to change their minds no matter what I do. Stuff like this is more than enough evidence that we shouldn't be taking in nearly as many people as we are. And yet, if you ask, I mean, basically, if you ask people on the left, or I mean, a rational way to go about having a conversation would be, well, what would it take for you to change your mind on the subject? And anyone with half a brain would say, well, just prove that, the immigrants and the refugees, on average, again, we're not judging individuals, we're just judging on average, that they're taking vastly more out of the system than they're putting in a country that's already can't pay their bills. Like, that would literally be like people who advocate for this kind of stuff, like against my position, are the kind of people that, like, they're in so much credit card debt that their solution to it is not, well, let's cut back. Well, let's just get another credit card. And that's basically what the left solution to this kind of stuff is that the left is, let's get another credit card. They're the let's get another credit card crowd. The right is usually the let's cut back crowd. The problem with it is that way too many people are afraid of being called mean names, namely racist, that they won't take a stand on this kind of stuff. And the problem with that being is that this kind of stuff is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And that's something that's the main reason why I make these videos. Is number one, I don't think we're going to change. I don't think I'm going to make a big enough difference. I don't think anyone's going to make a big enough difference to change enough people's mind on the subject. Why I want to make the videos is basically I told you so when the whole thing goes belly up. And number two, just to warn people, because I mean, you're much better off going down fighting than just giving in and giving up. Basically, that's my strategy. Basically, is that I'd rather go down fighting than just give in. So, long story short, I'm gonna keep making more of these kind of videos because you look in the comments sections of a lot of these people posting about this kind of stuff, and a staggering amount of people actually believe that people that come from the third world that have little to no education whatsoever actually are going to contribute to a society that's becoming increasingly I don't know, what do you want to call it, automized. More automation is coming in to replace the low-skilled jobs that these refugees and immigrants typically would work. So from an economics perspective, it makes absolutely no sense. Like, trying to explain this kind of stuff, it's the classic, trying to explain, physics to a monkey kind of situation with some of these people. And it's not that they're necessarily have nefarious intentions on average. It's just that they've fell hook, line, and sinker for the propaganda from, like I said, the public schools, the mainstream media, the colleges, all this kind of stuff. And I think that they'd rather fit in. It's like the high school cliquey kind of situation to where people would just rather fit in. The problem is that it's becoming increasingly uncomfortable to have that position. So people's solution is to double down or completely become ostracized from society, basically, in a lot of ways. I mean, you see this on college campuses that I think it's something like 70 or 80%, look this up. It's a staggering amount of people that have right-leaning views. They're afraid to share their views on colleges. And I would bet money that not as many gay people are afraid sharing their sexuality with people in colleges. Like, I would bet a lot of money on that. And that just goes to, I mean, not that gay people should be worried, but it just goes to show that the left has this idea that being gay is still this massive taboo in society. It's just because all over the right wing, xenophobes or, anti-gay people, even though it's way overblown. But yet you have the right-leaning people, which is, 40 to 50% of the population. Gays are maybe 1-2% of the population. And yet they're afraid to share their views. And it just goes to show just the staggering hate, basically, that comes from the left nowadays. But I don't want to talk too much more about the subject. Like I said, make sure you hit that like and subscribe, share. All this kind of stuff is very important. And don't just share my stuff, share other people's stuff too that are speaking truth to word, because that's all you can do nowadays. A lot of people always ask, well, what more can you do? Just share, do whatever you can, and even if it's just one person, that's all it really takes. So like I said, make sure to hit that like and subscribe and share, and stay tuned for more.